The Winds of Change raid has come and just about gone. I'm making this video with 21 hours left in the prize redemption window, and I want to go through a few things for this particular raid. How I did, what to get, which includes some notes and some upgrade times and kits and stuff like that, some useful resources, and then the two most useful things are actually at the very end. It's the build changes that I am planning on, which is probably more than you need to do, and then what officer you should be using on the dreadnaught, because the choices are actually pretty interesting this time around. We have some new mechanics that we haven't previously seen before, so make sure you stick around to the end of the video to see those two things, the build changes and what officer to use. But first of all, how did I do? You might think I did really well because I have 31 million points left over, but I only got about 53 million points total. The number one player got 1 billion, so if they could donate some to me, that would be fantastic. I'm not sure what they spent those on, but I will tell you what you should spend yours on in just a minute here. You might be wondering, and longtime viewers of the channel will know that I kind of record some stats on how I did in the raid compared to previous raids. I've been doing this for a little over a year now, and while I didn't really participate on my alt at all this year, so I can't tell you how many active players there were, if anyone does have this data, let me know, that'd be great. I'll do my best to get this out for you next raid. But the more interesting chart that has more things going on is this bubble chart below here, and you can see that I got 53 million points this raid. How this chart works is the bigger number means I got more points, so this huge green one I got like 200 million points, this tiny yellow one I only got 30 million points. Now what you should expect if the game is generally healthy is that if I have a smaller bubble, I should do worse. I should be higher up the y-axis here and not place as well in the leaderboard. And that is actually what you're seeing in this raid. This 38 right here is or 53 I should say, is a pretty small dot. 53 million points is not that much, and I was actually about on an equal playing field with other dots this size. It's actually kind of interesting if you look at how I did the previous raid. I got 73 million points. I only did a little bit worse than how I did right now. This kind of indicates that the first raid in the series is significantly harder, or otherwise just had fewer participants. Maybe 300 people quit between last month and this month, but this kind of indicates that the first raid in the series is harder than the third raid if people aren't quite ready or something like that. And of course, this is just a measure of me and how I did. I'm using myself as like a general active player who knows what's going on, not necessarily saying every player of every level. That would be more of the top chart here. Okay, that's enough about how I did. Now let's talk about what you should be getting in the raid. Although I guess before I do that, I should mention my thoughts on the targets and why I really didn't get that many points. The short answer is I liked the targets. I thought the change for the 1200 was pretty awful, where the projectile speed and stuff was jacked up from VXP weekend literally last week to the raid, where the 1200 could not be done very easily with zero repair because the countermeasures and stuff we were using were completely ineffective. That said, this is an auto target and you're expected to have some guaranteed damage, and I autoed basically every single one of these things. I didn't pay any attention to driving this guy. I treated it, and if Kixeye is going to give us auto damage, I'm just going to auto it and not bother driving that one. Got a little over an hour each time I autoed it, which wasn't too bad. It did mean you can only stack up 6 repairs on the single ship, which is a little annoying, but overall, very possible just to do that before you go to work or sleep or whatever. Now the 1201 I made an initial video on and then got some really good feedback, and I uploaded a 2-minute and 40-second run, which only took me 2 or 3 tries to get, and that did much better. And the tips in that, several of you commented on Facebook, YouTube, whatever, that you watched that video and then got a 0-second run or otherwise really low repair runs. Seeing those comments is super helpful and definitely makes me motivated to keep making videos like that one of showing you, yes, you can outrange this thing. Here's a path that works against this, where you can mitigate all the mitigatable damage. I like the 1201 target. It was a fun target to drive. It did take 5 or 6 minutes, which was a little long, but the officers you're going to want to equip can actually reduce the time to complete the target pretty significantly. I'll talk about that as well as the build changes at the end there. And then the targets for the Stormbreaker were, I guess I liked them a little bit less. The 101 felt harder to avoid some of the guaranteed damage, and I definitely autoed every single 100 I hit, apart from maybe one on video. But those were decent. They weren't as fun to drive as the 1201, which is why I spent more time driving the 1201. And my Stormbreaker fleet was actually generally more upgraded than my Smogfather. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about what to get here. So I think that there's actually not that much stuff to get in this particular raid because of Kixeye's change, a positive one, where the flagship now comes out earlier, so you don't have to get the flag in the first raid. You can focus your attention on getting some other miscellaneous stuff. Now, out of the order of the miscellaneous stuff I would get, the first is going to be flagship upgrade tokens. So upgrade kits, I should say. The Apex Stormbreaker upgrade kits, which I have already redeemed, looks like 17 out of 21 of, you should get enough to bring your ship up to X1. And if you don't remember how much that is, I'll show you in just a second, don't worry. Get enough to upgrade the flag to X1, that upgrade is out now, and I also redeemed 2 tokens plus those from the TLC, which gave me enough to bring this guy to X1 instantly. It doesn't really matter to get more because once you're at X1, the next upgrade, as you remember, is capital cores rather than just something else. But even if you're just at U2, you're going to want the kits now so you can get to X1 by the time next raid happens. I know the X1 upgrade takes a week to do, actually 5 days of tokens plus 2 days of tokens, but you should get enough kits to get your flag up to X1. Now, the other thing you should get is Smogfather Evolution Fragments, which, Evolution Fragments, so you should get enough to get this guy up to E8, and that's going to be a lot, and it's going to be pretty expensive. I don't actually know if there's enough offered in the raid if you started at E0. And that's because out of the historical release pattern, Kixeye generally releases things, and this resource I'm showing you is linked in the description of every YouTube video I post. If you forget, you can screenshot it, or you can just go to YouTube, and in the description of every single YouTube video in the past year has been this resource right here. So if you add up the fragments of where you're at right now to how many you have in inventory to E8, that's how many I would target getting. And maybe you decide that E7 jump, E8 jump is not worth it enough for you to spend the points on getting that, but you should definitely try and redeem a round number so you get from where you are. Let's say I'm at E3 and have 0 kits. I should redeem 20, 70, or 145. So just pay attention to some of that stuff there. And of course, you are not going to be able to get enough to get all the way up to E10 right now, and E10 isn't even out with the ship yet. I'll talk about some of the build considerations with that in the last section, which is the build thing and then officers to use here. Now, once you have enough dread fragments that you're happy with, I can upgrade this to E5, E6, E7, E8, whatever it is, you can move on to the next thing. And this one might be a little bit more derpy specific, because I actually didn't redeem the battery that came out for the dreadnaught. The Gush Wreck battery, I'm going to redeem this. Actually, I'll do that right now because I don't have any available and any built, and my ship has been underperforming because of that. Now, the other thing I'm going to get is going to be the heavy weapons for the dreadnaught, which is the Nox Rot. I'm going to go ahead and get 2 of these. I might get a third one. I'll show you the build and upgrade schedule for the ship here in just a second. And broadly, if you're missing any of the tech, like the Palladium Cloak for instance, you should get that. I know a lot of people in commenting didn't have this guy and were trying to find alternates. Well, if you are missing any tech for your Dreadnought, and even not the Smogfather, but the Stormbreaker, you should consider getting that in this raid. Once you get that stuff, there's a few things to consider. One of those I haven't seen people talking a lot about, and that's actually in the token section. It's the 2-day structure build token. You should start to max your inventory out for these if you are a competitive PvP player, because in the next month or so, maybe even before the next raid, I'm generally expecting the next outpost upgrade. And of course, the next dock upgrade, it comes with that too. So even if you just do PvE, you should pay attention, because what we're going to need to do is upgrade maybe a key building like the Great Hall first, and then the outpost, and then the dock. And maybe that Great Hall comes second, and dock comes third, whatever. But generally speaking, it's going to be very, very spicy and very weight limited on your fleet. You can only build maybe 3 or 4 ships, or 5 like half-weight ships or something like that in the next tier if you don't get this. So if you are not already maxed out on your structured build tokens, get this, don't spend it, and save it in inventory so that when the next OP upgrade comes out, you can get a 2-day head start on that one. Now, once you have that, you can start to get the officer enhancement chests for the Smogfather. And I would open these one at a time so you can see what you get and decide if you want to keep opening these. If you don't get all 3 of the golden crews that I'm going to recommend, you are still fine, and you can actually merge some of your lower crews later on. And actually, if you redeem a bunch of commons and max out at 3 copies of all of those, well, then the future upgrades in the raid a month from now are going to be better. So while I obviously can't get, even myself, spend 40 million points on all these chests if I only got 53 total on the raid, every single one you do open will be helpful in future raids, even if that's a month away. And then the other thing that you should consider here is upgrade tokens, not build tokens. We generally have way enough of those. Is evolution tokens for the Smogfather, as well as upgrade tokens. Probably not the flag ones. We've seen a lot of flag upgrade tokens in the TLC, and you should probably count on that happening again. But upgrade tokens for the regular ships to try and get you from where you're at right now, be that U2, U3, whatever, up to all X1 for the next raid. So you between now and a month from now, there's a little bit of a build strategy of what do I want to spend physical shipyard time upgrading, and what do I want to spend tokens on. It will depend a little bit for you. In general, my Smogfather is weaker than my Stormbreakers, so I'm going to actually try and spend more time, be that physical time or tokens, on upgrading the Smogfather here, because it's a little bit lower than my Stormbreakers. And then once you do all that, if you have millions of points extra to spend, you're like the #1 player and got 1 billion, then you can go ahead and redeem some of these enhancement chests and stuff like that. So let's actually go ahead and open up some of these chests I just got, and then I will go over the build tokens. Oh, look, I got extra tokens and stuff from the last few targets I hit before logging off. Lucky. Cool. So the last thing I'll show you before I switch to some other stuff here is I want to show you the build changes and upgrade plan that I'm doing for my fleet. So just to recap, my Stormbreakers are using the build kind of shown on screen here. I'm very happy with that. I'm not intending to change it. The flag is at X1 through some tokens, which is super important because of Kingkiller. And then I have ships are mostly at U3. There's definitely 2 U2 ships in here, so those guys do need a little bit of work. But I do have enough kits already. I have actually 640 of the standard ones. The TLC pays out 280. I will have way more than enough to get this guy up to X1. So just keep that in mind here. You'll be totally fine with getting these guys up to X1 if you have a ton of kits. If you don't, the TLC pays out 280, and might even happen twice again this month, although I'm not quite sure on that one. So my Stormbreakers are actually pretty good. I'm not intending on any build changes. There are some escalation stuff, of course, that I could use. I could use better weapons, whatever. I'm happy with my armors. I'm happy with the build. I'm happy with the number of countermeasure ships. The thing that is going to change, and actually change quite a lot for me, is going to be the Smogfather. So what I am using right now is actually an under-equipped Smogfather, despite the fact I redeemed an officer chest in the raid, and I got just one chest so far. I should have just put it on there. It doesn't matter what you use. One of anything is better than having 0, so I should have thrown the captain on there a while ago. I should take the old battery I'm using, and I should replace that with the Gush Wreck battery, and then I should go ahead and add in some of these limited mortars that I got from chests and stuff, which I think I can only put 2 on total, because I don't really have that many. Ooh, maybe 3. Ooh, 4. Look at that. So I should have done this during the raid, so my raid would be easier. And the reason I redeemed 2 of those heavy weapons is so I have enough to at least equip the slot at I guess E4 has this for sure. It's equipped at, I actually can't quite remember, E1. E1 gets a single mortar, so I should have equipped that, before. And then the other one comes out at E6. I'm expecting to get up to E8, maybe just that those upgrades to be out within the next month or so, which is why I'm planning for this E6 one pretty soon. I have a second one that I can equip when this guy does get up to E6. I'm not bothering with the E10 one now. And obviously, if I redeemed that 3rd mortar chest, I would have a higher chance of getting a legendary, an epic, whatever. That doesn't really matter. That 5-10% difference in damage isn't really that effective to me. But I am intending to actually put these on here, which would take 2 days of build time total, and I probably have some tokens to cover that. Now, the other things I'm going to need to make sure I redeem, which is probably from the Forsaken mission, is more of the armor. If you're paying close attention at home, I'm actually using tier 13.5 armor. This is because it doesn't give you as much survival. It only gives you like 175k compared to 200 or 300k for the newer armors. But what it does give you is it gives you some plus penetrative damage, and the important one is obviously plus explosive damage, being that we have mortars. So 175k and plus 4%, or I could use the one that came out with the ship, which I actually don't own and don't open any chests for, and that gives you 310k. Now, the funny thing is I'm actually out. I'm over-equipped of the both the M and the X armor, so I need to either take them off my old ships, which might be the Bonesaw or something else like that, or I need to find out where they came from, be that Strike, be that the Forsaken mission, whatever, and redeem more of these things, because I am out of the missile, as you can see, and I think I'm also out of the explosive. Yep, I'm out of both of those. So I'll just go ahead and throw on the tier 3 version of them because it is a free upgrade, a free refit. There's no penalty on time between the missile one, there is between the damage types, but not between the tier 3 and the tier 4 ones. So I'm going to throw those on here, obviously less of a damage boost, but still useful. And I should have done this upgrade and started this one quite a while ago. Now, you can see that the built-in stats here, the defense stats, are what I want to talk about as I go over the officers to use here. Obviously, if you have one, just use that one. But if you have multiple, what should you be using at E0? What about E5 if you have 2? And then E9, once we get that for probably the 3rd raid, what are the recommendations I have for the officers here? Now, it's actually pretty simple. And for that we can go over to the raid briefing and look at what we got here. So the first officer is the captain. This has to go in the first slot, the gold one. You can't put him in the second one. You only get one captain per ship. And this is a very good one. Even the uncommon 1-star one gives you explosive reload, not that important, but damage and evade are very nice. This one you should use if you have it, unless you're putting it against a gold of the other ones. The 1-star captain is usually better than 2 stars of the other things. And the 2-star captain is better than 3 stars of other things. Basically, the captain gets it like a 1.5-star boost. So the 2-star captain is like a 3.5, which is obviously better than exists for the gold stuff. And the legendary one is great. It gives you reload, which is whatever. You have a lot of that already. But explosive damage, evade, and combat speed are very, very useful for this target. Use the captain basically unless you got all gold other stuff and don't have any of him. Now, the next one, which I definitely read as a biologist, not a bullgut, this Vulcan guy, whatever, he gives explosive damage and building damage, and these are very nice stats because they basically make you complete the target more quickly. Now, they don't directly help you take less damage unless you avoid the second volley from a sprint or a mortar in the 1200 or something like that, but there's no downside to doing more damage and killing the target more quickly. In fact, if you're a little bit pressed for time and don't want to sit 5 minutes through every single target, using this is actually a very, very good officer. This, before we look at the other ones together, is scoring pretty highly for me here, and there has to be something else really good for me to not recommend using this one if you have it. Now, the second option for the regular officers, the Smog Pilot Dredge, gives you survival. Now, the question you might have is, let's say you can get the legendary one that gives you, 150k survival. Should you use it? Now, this next resource, which is also linked in the description of every YouTube video, shows you how much going from, say, 200k survival to 350k survival matters. And that basically will result in a reduction in your repair bills of 41%. That is huge. But if you look at my dreadnaught, this guy has a survival right here of 2.2 million once you factor in like turret defense, splash damage reduction, whatever. So once I have that here, and if you go from 2.2 million and add 150k, how much does that additional survival help? Well, the answer is 6%. 6% is not zero, but you can get more from a 0-star Steelhead's crew. A 1-star Steelhead's crew, which is super easy to get, you should have like 100 of them stacked up, gives you 20%. So this is not that great, and I'm inclined to, if they are equal level, take the damage officer over the survival one, just so that the target ends more quickly and you have a chance, and maybe this is what you should play around with depending on your particular limited weapon setup, of killing a specific turret before it fires off its second volley, because that can be a 50% reduction in the damage taken rather than something like a 6%. So if you have the gold one of this and like the 1-star of something else, you should probably use this officer. But if you don't, and you're comparing like a 2-star against a 2-star where 80k survival matters even less, I am very inclined to go for the damage one over the survival one. Survival is not bad, and if you tell me you can take 6% less damage, oh, and by the way, you get some turn speed and evade thrown on top of it, I will accept that. I'll take 6% less damage, but I think that actually killing things more quickly could be more important. Now, the last one we have here is really weird, and this thing has an effect. It has a aura that affects enemy turrets and ships and stuff like that. I guess not ships, just buildings, which shouldn't super matter because it's mostly buildings in this target. But it reduces their damage by some number per second, 150 million per second. I don't know if this is applying before or after survival. I'm sure it's after. But this is a really weird stat that I can't actually guarantee works. It also has a range of 110, which means if something is outranging you and hitting you anyway, or firing before you get within 110 range of this guy, it doesn't work. And being that we don't know the damage that the enemy turrets are doing they doing like 3 billion and we're taking 150 million out of 3 billion? Like they're doing, is this saving like 1% of the total incoming damage or half of it? I don't really know. And without doing like some pretty extensive testing on this one, I am not going to be able to recommend this one. I just can't guarantee that it does anything. So until you like auto the target and switch one of this out against the survival one, there's no way of knowing this thing works, and it might only apply to turrets that are close range on auto in the first place, rather than like just long range turrets that are always hitting you if you're driving, regardless of how well you drive or not. So we have to wait and see on this one, but for now, the officer slots that I'm going to recommend is the captain, and then the damage crew, and then the survival crew. Obviously, if you have the 3-star survival one and the 1-star damage, you can probably safely pick the the higher rarity one, but that's my recommendation for now on this guy. So there's my thoughts on the build changes that I'm doing here. I'm not changing any of my countermeasures, whatever, and my thoughts on the officers to use. Let me know if you have any other questions about the Smogfather build or the Stormbreaker build, and I'll do my best to get back to you. I want to give a huge shout out to the channel members whose names appear on the end screen now. They're helping make videos like this one, which is the 6th or 7th one of the raid, possible. Until next time, this is Derpy signing out, helping you be a better pirate.